Good evening, friends. What if the kingdom of heaven is not a distant realm to reach someday, but a living presence to awaken to now, in the stillness of your own being? Tonight our theme is what happens while you truly understand what the kingdom of heaven is. When this dawns, the restless search quiets, you stop trying to pull God into your problems and begin resting as the presence that outshines them. Supply isn't something you acquire, it reveals itself as sufficiency. Healing ceases to be a project and becomes the natural radiation of wholeness. In each face you meet, separation softens into one life. Prayer turns from many words to a deep listening, and fear, fed by appearances, loses its authority. If this speaks to you, please like the video, comment, or well 11 to affirm oneness and subscribe so we can continue this inner practice together. Because stay with me. Because in a moment, I'll invite you into one simple turning within, so subtle you could miss it, yet so real it may quietly rearrange everything you thought the kingdom was. This is the shift from seeking to abiding, not an acquisition, but a relaxation into what already is. Seeking is the mind on tiptoe, reaching outward, scanning the horizon of conditions, bargaining with time for a better tomorrow. Abiding is the heart at home, resting in the presence that is unhurried, unprovoked, and already whole. In seeking, we subtly affirm lack and distance. In abiding, we consent to nearness and sufficiency. The kingdom does not arrive with parade and noise. It discloses itself when the restless inner commentary yields to a quiet recognition. I am not apart from the life I desire. Notice how seeking always postpones. It says, when I fix this, then I will be at peace. It makes peace a reward for achievement. But abiding discovers peace as the atmosphere of being itself, here before any fixing, here beneath every appearance. Abiding does not refuse activity. It simply anchors it. From the still center, doing becomes expression, not a chase. Words gently soften. Prayer thins to listening. The sense of a separate self striving to reach God gives way to the awareness that presence is the very life of the one who seemed to strive. To taste this, let attention drop from head, noise into the felt fact of existence. Feel the breath without managing it. Feel the aliveness that is prior to thought. Let awareness be aware of itself, like a sky aware of its own clear space. You are not manufacturing anything, you are ceasing to interfere. The surface mind wants a technique to guarantee result. Abiding waits without anxiety, not to get, but to behold. In that beholding, lack loses its storyline, and answers arrive without the familiar push. Seeking places you at the center of effort, abiding places presence at the center of everything. Seeking says, I must hold it all together. Abiding recognizes that life is already holding you. Seeking divides today into steps toward a goal. Abiding dissolves the distance and allows the quality of the goal, peace, clarity, love to be present now. From that now, the next right step rises of itself, simple, quiet, evident. You do not abandon responsibility, you are freed from the fever of control. As this deepens, even spiritual ambition falls away. We stop collecting experiences, revelations, proofs. We stop measuring ourselves against imagined standards. The subtle pride of improvement gives way to the humility of isness. What remains is a lucid confidence without arrogance, a softness without passivity. You find yourself available, receptive, responsive. You listen more than you argue. You bless more than you analyze. You trust the rhythm that moves the tides to move your day in its season. In relationships, the shift is palpable. You are less busy managing impressions and more interested in truly seeing. Silence becomes comfortable, kindness unforced. Work simplifies. You trade the adrenaline of urgency for the momentum of clarity. Decisions are no longer coin flips of fear, but quiet recognitions of what already feels true. Even uncertainty loses its menace because abiding reveals a ground beneath change. You discover patience that is not delay, boundaries that are not walls, humor that is not defense. Gratitude arises without a reason, and service flows without self-congratulation, as if presence were doing what needs to be done through you. It is grounded in an inner discovery. The kingdom is realized within, never attained without. Outer conditions can mirror it, but they cannot confer it. We may remodel our homes, refine our schedules, adjust relationships, even pursue lofty missions, yet if the center remains unrecognized, satisfaction will be conditional and brief. Within does not mean a private thought or an emotion to cultivate. It points to the living presence aware of thoughts and emotions. The clear, witnessing life that is here before the next achievement and remains after every season passes. When attention turns to that core, something subtle but decisive occurs. The authority we assign to appearances loosens. Whether headlines, bank statements, praise or blame may still arrive, yet they stop dictating your atmosphere. The kingdom is not opposed to the world. It is the light by which the world is rightly seen. Just as the sun does not fight the clouds but simply shines, realization dispels the sense that fulfillment lies behind the next arrangement of circumstances. We are trained to outsource meaning to forms, to a ritual perfectly kept, to words carefully repeated, to a teacher, method, or milestone. These can serve as pointers and companions, yet none can substitute for the direct recognition of the presence that is your very life. The pearl of great price is not an object to acquire, it is the seeing that illumines all objects. When the inner seeing awakens, forms become transparent. You can participate in them with joy, leave them with peace, and never be impoverished. Practical life shifts. Instead of trying to import holiness into events, you show up already whole. You take the call, send the email, wash the dishes, sign the contract, but the motive is different. Action arises as expression, not as a bid for completion. You discover an unhurried sufficiency at the center of activity. Even correction of a habit, a budget, a boundary, emerges from clarity rather than anxiety, and therefore carries a different fragrance, gentle yet firm. This within us is not hidden by distance, it is veiled by noise. Quiet is not the goal, it is the doorway. Sit for a few breaths and notice the simple fact of being. Without chasing, without pushing away, let awareness rest in itself. You are not trying to attract the kingdom, you are letting go of the assumption that you are outside of it. Like tuning a radio, you are aligning with a signal already present, and the music was here before you touched the dial. As this realization matures, you begin to trust the inner verdict more than the clamor of comparison. Guidance feels less like a thunderclap and more like a steady leaning of the heart. Opportunities are discerned by resonance, not by fear of missing out. Gratitude no longer depends on a lucky break, it arises because the ground is good, because life is what it is, and from that goodness, the next word, the next step, the simple kindness comes. And as you rely on this inner government, you notice that outer changes still happen, but they unfold as echoes rather than commands. You are no longer negotiating with appearances. You are acknowledging a fact of being, and from that fact your conduct, your creativity, your compassion find their order in the everyday moments. From this recognition, sufficiency begins to reveal itself as the native climate of being, and the story of lack quietly loses its plausibility. Lack is a conclusion drawn by a mind looking out at fragments. Sufficiency is the felt fact of a life that is whole. It is not opulence stacked in the pantry of tomorrow, but the quality of enoughness shining through the present moment. When the center is acknowledged, we stop trying to extract completion from objects and arrangements. Instead, we meet what is at hand and discover that presence contains the wisdom and provision appropriate to the hour. Sufficiency is not the twin of excess. It is the rightness of measure, the graceful fit of need and provision in living relationship. It does not forbid increase, it purifies motive. When fear softens, accumulation for security relaxes and space opens for right circulation, giving and receiving as the breath of one life. You find yourself no longer driven by the anxious arithmetic of comparison. The question shifts from, how can I get more? To, what is the truthful expression now? In that shift, channels appear you had been too tense to notice. Practically, the nervous itch of "if only" loosens. If only I had more time, more money, more support, yields to a direct engagement with the exact resources present: clarity, skill, relationships, tools. You discover that many problems were not under-resourced but over-resisted. When resistance eases, intelligence moves. A phone call you had postponed becomes simple. A budget aligns without strain. An idea matures because it was given the quiet it required. This is not magical thinking. It is freedom from the constriction that made even abundance feel thin. "Give us this day our daily bread" ceases to be a petition to a distant source and becomes the recognition of the source as the life of this very day. From here, generosity is natural, not performative. You are not reckless, you are rightly ordered. Waste falls away, not from tight-fisted fear, but from reverence. You prune habits that siphon attention, money, and energy because they do not serve what is true. Saying no becomes an act of stewardship, making room for the yes that is yours to give. In relationships, sufficiency dissolves the impulse to extract validation. You show up to bless, not to bargain. Attention becomes an offering, not bait. Because you no longer approach others as your supply, intimacy can deepen without pressure. You listen more cleanly, speak more plainly. Where there was subtle grasping, there is room to receive, and the exchange acquires the ease of mutuality. In work, the orientation shifts from scarcity-driven hustle to service-guided clarity. Value is seen as a quality flowing through you, not a commodity you must hoard. Prices, salaries, agreements become expressions of fairness and usefulness rather than proofs of worth. You negotiate from peace, which paradoxically strengthens your spine. You can walk away from misaligned opportunities without fear because your trust is not tethered to a single channel. The voice that whispers, "Never enough," may still visit, but it no longer governs. You meet it with simple facts: the breath arriving, the competence already in hand, the friends on speed dial, the quiet that steadies the inner room. Gratitude becomes precise, noticing the adequacy of the step you can take, the word you can speak, the rest you can allow. Sufficiency also honors limits. It recognizes seasons, Sabbath, and the wisdom of boundaries. You discover that rest can be productive and that simplicity multiplies capacity. Owning less, you feel more resourced. What doing fewer things, you do them with a calm thoroughness that proves to be its own provision. And even the calendar begins to feel like a friendly river, carrying just enough for today. From here, healing is revealed as realization, not manipulation. It is the dawning of wholeness rather than the wrestling down of symptoms. The more we try to bully the body or coerce circumstances, the tighter the knot. The more we rest in presence, the more the knot remembers it is only a temporary tangle in a larger fabric. Healing is an unveiling, like lifting a veil from a window so the room is flooded with a light that was never absent. Manipulation is the mind attempting to fix effects without touching the cause. It argues with appearances, counts and measures, chants and presses, trying to make life behave. Realization does not deny appearances, it places them in the light of what is changeless. When a room is dark, you don't fight the darkness, you turn on the light. In the same way, realization is the gentle turning toward the awareness that is here before the complaint and remains after it, the presence that knows you as whole. This does not mean we pretend or paste affirmations over fear. Words can serve as tuning forks, but only when they point to what is already true, not when they are used as spells to force an outcome. A simple inward acknowledgement, only one presence, only one power, spoken without strain, can steady the inner room. Not to make something happen, but to stop agreeing with the suggestion that there are competing powers wrestling for control of your life. When a symptom or a troubled mood appears, meet it as you would a sudden squall on a lake, note it anchor, and allow it to pass. Rest attention in the awareness that notices the sensation. Feel the breath, feel the ground, and let the mind's commentary thin. Instead of asking, "How do I push this away?" ask, "What is true here even with this present?" Often, The anxiety that fed the symptom loosens, and with it comes clarity about the next kind step: tea and rest, a conversation, a walk, a practical appointment that you'd been postponing. Realization and wise action are not adversaries. Guidance may include medicine, therapy, or a change of habit. What shifts is the motive. You are no longer acting from panic or self-condemnation, but from a quiet alignment. The efficacy is not in the pill or the practice by itself. It is in the life that animates and directs their right use. Reverence for that life allows you to receive help without feeling diminished and to release methods when they have served their season. Another feature of realization is the impersonal way we meet trouble. Instead of calling it my condition or my failing, we meet it as a passing assertion without owner, like weather passing through an open field. This softens shame and defensiveness, making room for compassion and for the small, steady corrections that actually help. The nervous system hears the safety in this and begins to unclench. Breath deepens, sleep returns, relationships feel less brittle. Decisions become simpler because they are less entangled with fear. With others, healing by realization means we stop trying to improve people as projects. We behold them in their dignity, listen without agenda, and refuse to join the narrative that they are broken. This beholding is not passivity, it is a potent kindness. From it, the right word may arise, or the wise boundary, or the silent prayer that neither pushes nor pleads, but bears witness to wholeness already present. Outcomes may still vary in form, but the inner atmosphere changes. First, less struggle, more ease, less accusation, more space, less self-management, more trust in a life that knows how to mend what we could only meddle with. And in this clearer atmosphere, prayer is rediscovered as silent listening awareness, less a speech to life than a turning toward life, yielding the podium, laying down the gavel, consenting to be inwardly still. Petition assumed distance, listening acknowledges nearness. Petition tries to engineer events. Listening welcomes presence and lets action rise in its own time. This is not the absence of words for the sake of austerity. It is the willingness to let words fall silent when they have served, so that the deeper knowing already here can be heard. Begin simply. Sit or stand where you are. Soften the brow, the tongue, the belly. Feel the weight of your body supported. Let the breath breathe itself unhurried. Sounds are not intrusions but part of the field. Thoughts appear, you need not chase or swat them. If a gentle phrase helps attune, here, I am. Only one presence, let it ring once like a bell, then listen to the fading resonance rather than clinging to the bell. The emphasis is not on producing a state, but on noticing the still, aware space that is already present beneath any state. In this listening, we are not trying to make God aware of us. We are becoming aware of God as the life of awareness itself. You will notice a quieting of the inner bargaining. The compulsion to ask for specific outcomes loosens, and what remains is a lucid availability. Speak, and I will hear, guide, and I will go, correct, and I will yield. Guidance seldom shouts, it leans. It has a signature, unforced, clean, without the metallic taste of fear. If agitation spikes, wait. If a simple ease arrives, proceed. The timing of wisdom carries its own rhythm. Listening prayer permeates ordinary tasks. Before you send the message, pause for a single breath and feel the ground. While washing dishes, notice the warmth of water and let gratitude arise without narrative. In the car, hands on the wheel, release the jaw and attend to the quiet hum beneath motion. These micro-saboths stitch the day with awareness, turning the hours into a sanctuary where decisions are made from center rather than from hurry. For others, prayer becomes beholding rather than diagnosing. We set down the urge to fix, and we look through appearances to the dignity that is untouched. Sometimes a name surfaces to mind, hold it lightly in the light. Without scripting a result, if an action is needed, a call, a visit, a boundary, it will emerge without strain. Blessing does not push, it witnesses, and in that witnessing, a warmth may move that neither argument nor pleading could achieve. When disturbance returns, treat it as weather passing through the open sky. Name it softly, tightness, worry, grief, and meet it with breath and spacious attention. Forgiveness, too, is part of listening, not an endorsement of harm, but the release of the demand that the past be other than it was, freeing attention for the truth at hand. If words return, let them be simple and reverent, and let amen mean not a period, but a resting back into trust, the heart unclenched, the mind unhooked from outcome, the whole being tuned to the quiet current that carries the day, and in the hush of that current, an intuition dawns that what listens in you is not separate from what is listened to, and that this prayer, without petition, is already the meeting place where fear begins to forget its lines. From that hush, the boundary between the listener and the listened thins until what remains is the living intuition of one life moving us all. Separation had been a habit of perception, a reflex that carved the seamless into parts and set them against each other. Now it is seen as a useful convention for navigation, not a statement of truth. Fear feeds on apartness, me against you, me against time, me against circumstance. So as apartness relaxes, fear loses its scaffolding and begins to loosen of itself. This is not a denial of differences, it is their transfiguration. The wave does not cease to be a wave when it knows itself as ocean, it simply stops fearing the next wave. Your uniqueness remains vivid, yet it no longer competes for oxygen. The gifts of others do not threaten, they enrich. You can admire without envy and correct without contempt. Accountability becomes an act of respect, restoring alignment to the shared field rather than scoring points for a private self. In practice, this recognition shows up in small, precise moments. Before reacting, you remember to feel the shared breath of the room. Words that were loaded with defense soften. You ask a cleaner question, and real information appears. You listen past positions to what is tender and true underneath. Instead of speaking to win, you speak to reveal. The posture is soft belly, strong spine, open-hearted, steady, unwilling to injure or to be injured by the mind's old dramas. One life does not abolish boundaries, it clarifies them. A truthful no arises without hostility because it is not aimed at a person but at an untruth. You can step away from what harms without rehearsing a case. You can address injustice with a steady flame instead of a wildfire of rage. The energy that used to fuel resentments is freed for creative repair. Forgiveness ceases to be a heroic feat. It becomes the natural byproduct of seeing that the same life is trying to remember itself in all parties. In work, this translates to collaboration that is not performative. You stop hoarding credit and information, you share them because circulation strengthens the whole. Competition, when it appears, becomes a training partner rather than an enemy. Decisions are weighed not only by personal gain but by the health of the ecosystem. Team, clients, community. Fair prices, fair pay, fair praise, not slogans, but obvious expressions of a field where no one needs to diminish another to be seen. The circle of kinship widens beyond the human. You feel the kinship of trees, rivers, animals, the world no longer a backdrop but a living congregation. Care for places and things becomes an expression of self, respect in the largest sense. You buy less because reverence grows, you mend because love wants continuity. You leave a space cleaner than you found it because it is not out there. It is the house you share with everyone and everything. Even the great spectre, death, takes its proper seat. Grief is honored fully, tears welcome, memories cherished, and yet beneath the H there is a quiet knowing that life does not break, it changes form. The fear of endings loses its tyranny when the continuity of being is tasted. Attention returns to the intimacy of the present, this hand to hold, this bird on the fence, this breath, and in that intimacy love moves confidently without needing guarantees, meeting each face as a familiar, each task as a chance to let the one life recognize itself again.